we'll start, and then we'll have this video available to anybody who wasn't able to make it. Karen, you can send that to me, the link to me at some point, so we can post it to the class website, and then also for any scholars that weren't able to make it. She says yes. Okay. So I think we can start recording then, Karen. Great. So I think I know most of you at this point, but those watching later on video, hopefully we'll get to know each other soon. I'm Elizabeth Berner. I'm part of workforce development with the SCCTSI as a faculty instructor with the CTR courses, as well as the ICTR course that's focused on residents and fellows. But I'm also an NIH LRP ambassador. And what I am speaking to you all about today is an opportunity to help you stay in an academic career by reducing your educational debt. So not everyone on this call has educational debt at this point, but you are likely to have trainees that will have educational debt or colleagues. And this is a resource you can let them know about, even if it isn't something you can personally take advantage of at this point. But what we're going to talk about today is to talk about the application process for the loan repayment program. Select the right loan repayment program to apply for, to plan for some common pitfalls that come up when applying to the NIH Loan Repayment Program, and then to plan your outline of your LRP proposal. So 1 through 3, we're going to talk about with an expert panel of people who recently received this award, as well as some information I'm going to share you from the NIH. And then number 4 will be at the end, looking at either current awards you have planned out or already submitted or have funded, and how to think about converting those to be a loan repayment proposal, because the goal is not to start from scratch on this. So I think the first question for most of us is if the loan repayment program is the right program for you. So you do have to have educational debt. So if you don't have educational debt, I'm very proud of you. This isn't the right program for you personally. But there are other loan repayment programs and loan forgiveness programs that you may have heard about. And there are some that you cannot apply for at the same time as the NIH Loan Repayment Program. So one is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness. Who's familiar with that? You can do silent hand raising. It's been in the news a lot lately because there's been a waiver for that. That's a program where after 10 years of on-time loan repayment, if you have a standard structured student loan, the rest of the loan is forgiven. So that's really popular for people in training programs where their salaries might rapidly increase after 3 to 6 years of training, because you make on-time payments at this lower income-based repayment, and then kind of get ahead of the debt that way. There was a recent waiver to that relaxed repayment requirements, and I have some resources for this in the talk, and we'll send those slides out if you're interested in that. The NIH Loan Repayment Program does not necessarily conflict with this repayment program, because they, you may not have that much debt left over after 10 years of on-time payments if you're doing the NIH Loan Repayment Program, but the two programs do not conflict with each other, and you are allowed to be participating in public service loan forgiveness at the same time that you have your NIH Loan Repayment Program also making payments on your loans. USC and CHLA are both eligible employers for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. So if that's who you work for currently, that's great news. There are other service-based loan repayment programs that some of your trainees might currently participate in. There's some through the state of California and some that are specific to Los Angeles County, particularly the county hospitals. Those programs typically conflict with the NIH Loan Repayment Program because they require, basically full-time clinical service to do these other service-based loan repayment programs, whereas the NIH Loan Repayment Program is really about supporting researchers who are focused on health science. And so those two will conflict with each other. So just for you to be aware also, as you're kind of counseling trainees, don't encourage someone who's 100% clinical to apply to the loan repayment program through the NIH. They need to look at other loan repayment options. This is just that reminder, if you're doing the public service loan forgiveness, that there's a waiver that will be due relatively soon. And these slides will come out later if you want to look through those resources. That is not what today's talk is about. And so just be aware that that exists. You probably want more information about the loan repayment program even after we speak today. So I've included the links to the general application website for the loan repayment program, The detailed instruction guide, which is like 40 pages long and walks you through like each individual box in the application of what to enter there. But then also new to the loan repayment program this year is the Assist application program. This is the first year they've rolled that out. And so loan repayment requests and proposals are now submitted through the NIH through an ERA Commons linked system. And so that's added kind of an extra layer of complexity for applicants this year. How much will the NIH pay you? Right, this is actually amazing. Up to 50% of your debt and up to $50,000 per year, and your initial contract is for 2 years. So if you're selected for an NIH loan repayment program, you will receive $50,000 a year paid towards your loan balance quarterly for 2 years. So that's just a really great benefit from many of us who took out loans to pay for our graduate school. They also pay federal and state taxes up to 39% of that. They make those direct payments to the tax boards for you. So it's not, you might have a little bit of extra tax burden on top of that, but they're taking care of a substantial portion of it. And this is based on a ratio of your income to your debt. The educational debt that they are willing to pay must be at least 20% of your annual salary. So for a lot of us, that's within the range of what medical school, graduate school, maybe undergraduate school cost, and what our current salaries are. The competitive renewals continue after you receive your first award, and there's a competitive renewal process where you resubmit for further funding, and the amount that's funded on those decreases. It's not another $50,000 a year. It's decreased by the actual percent of your debt to your annual salary. So they fund currently almost 2,500 researchers. So last year was 2,250, and that's been increasing rapidly over the past several years. So they are looking to fund health researchers. You need to have an MD, a PhD, a PharmD, or an equivalent doctoral level degree. So if you are currently in training and still working on a doctorate, remember this program for when you finish it, because if you're doing health-related research, they want to keep you in academics and keep you in a research career. You need to be a US citizen or permanent resident. Okay. And you need to be conducting health-related research for at least 20 hours per week. And I like to point out that 20 hours per week, because when I was first doing my training programs, I brought something up about FTE versus hours per week to my chair, and my chair replied that I did not say what the denominator was in that calculation. And so it is 20 hours a week of research, not necessarily the percent that you're doing. It's a single application cycle per year. This does not follow the typical NIH, every 4 months opportunity to apply or reapply. The applications opened on September 1st, and they're due in the middle of November. This year, the deadline is November 17th. There's several categories of loan repayment programs that we'll talk about. And new to the loan repayment program over the past couple of years is that you also select an institute or center that you think your work most aligns with to have those funds distributed. So you really need to, after you select the loan repayment program you're interested in, confirm that your research aligns with the institute or center priorities that you are applying towards. So you need to contact your institute, or I'm just trying to copy that, and that's not going to work for me there. Contact your point person at your institute or center, and reach out to them and find out what their priorities are. Send them a spec aims page, whatever you have put together, so that you can find out if what you're doing matches what their priorities are this year. So that might help you decide between 2 institutes or 2 different loan repayment programs if you align more closely with one or the other. The Assist program is new. You've always needed an ERA Commons login to apply for the loan repayment program, but now you really need it, because if you don't have an ERA login, you can't get into the program to even start your application. So if you don't have an ERA Commons login right now, that's something to start on ASAP. We talked about how the Assist program is new this year. So it's just going to be a little bit extra level of complexity. So make sure that you budget in, another half hour or so to get used to that system and how to use it. And And another new thing, since we're now using Assist to apply for and distribute the loan repayment program, is that a business official at USC actually has to have an ERA Commons ID. So there's going to be a point person at USC Keck. I'm not sure about who it will be at CHLA yet, but there's one person that will be the business official for loan repayment programs at USC. Here at USC, her name is Janet Stalker. I confirmed with her. She expects to receive emails from anybody who is hired by USC. If you are receiving your money, any of your salary through USC, she is the person that can set you up for that. Send her an email and let her know that you need her Commons ID because she wants to keep track of who's applying as well, just so she knows in the future if you receive it, to look for your certifications, because it'll be her responsibility every quarter to certify that you've been doing 20 hours a week of research and that you're still affiliated with USC. So there are different subcategories of the loan repayment programs that you need to be aware of. And this is the first step to applying. You have to select one of these when you start your application. If you decide to change later, you can abandon an old application and start a new one, but you have to start the application in the right loan repayment program. So there's clinical research, and that's really just clinical research, any patient-oriented research conducted with human subjects or materials of human origin, right? So our preclinical all the way through public health research, all across the spectrum, trying to understand causes or consequences or treatments of disease in humans. And that's a large chunk of the awards that are given, and they're distributed through those institutes or centers based on that institute or center's priority. There's pediatric research, which gets its own separate area. A lot of those are going to come through Children's Health as the institute, but it's really specific to kids. There's health disparity research, right, which focuses on minority and other health disparity populations. And so that was one that I know a lot of us applied through over the past 10 or 15 years. There is a new category this year, research in emerging areas critical to human health, right? The REACH award. And this is brand new for this year. And it's a way for the NIH to really recruit and retain researchers who are aligning with priorities at the NIH for that year. Institute and center priorities sometimes shift a little more slowly, and this is a way that they've created kind of a recruitment and retention tool for researchers that are on the cutting edge of whatever is needed in health research at that point. The clinical and disadvantaged backgrounds is really the same research focus as clinical research, but it has special priority from clinical researchers from verifiably disadvantaged backgrounds. And I would reach out to the National Institute of Minority Health and Disease to clarify what they mean by that exactly and see if you qualify for that, if you think you might. And there's contraception and infertility research, which I think is pretty self-explanatory about what the goals in that are. But some of these are carve-outs because they're special areas in the NIH they're trying to prioritize. So be aware of the different loan repayment programs and think about what you align with. There's a really cool dashboard. So we are gonna try to go to it. Actually, we'll do that after the panel because I know some of the panel has to step off for various things. So we will come back to the dashboard after we have an opportunity to ask people about that. But it lets you know a lot about the number of applications and awards based on the different loan repayment programs, what the success rate is. There's a little map of the United States. There are other areas where people are engaged in these programs. But I do want you to take the dashboard with a grain of salt because one of the things you notice is like the National Institute of Minority Health and Disparities had this rapid drop off, right? Like they were funding a lot of awards and all of a sudden it dropped off. And that wasn't necessarily a change in the funding or anything like that. It was just that the other institutes started to prioritize health disparities for their institutes and centers. So people who were applying in clinical research also, were getting funded for health disparity research. That became a priority and people shifted their applications to those other areas. And I think one great change is that you can now select 2 institutes or centers to review your award. because you might align with more than one of them. Like I know Pradeep in particular does both pediatric and neurologic research. And so, maybe there's two places that might find the right home for your work. And so I think that that's a great flexibility that they've offered. I think a big question for anybody applying this year is their research reach research, right? Because there's this new award, this new call. It sounds pretty attractive. And you have to look. Every institute and center has set out what their reach priorities are for the loan repayment program. So again, in these slides, visit the link there and look at the different institutes that you're interested in and see, does my research align with any of the priorities from these institute and center priorities listed? And it's, I agree, a little weird that you have to look at the institute center priority and then also their reach priorities, but they are separate statements. So you need to make sure that you're applying to the right award. If you are planning on applying, you should be sending an email, like at the end of our talk today, to your potential program officers, right? You need to find out if you match them early, because they're not going to just reply to an email and tell you yes or no. When you reach out to a program officer, they want to have a meeting on the phone or sometimes by Zoom, right? And that's often how they communicate with us. And so you have to schedule a time to do that. So I would plan on contacting them very soon if you're going to be applying to this program. And one big issue is that there's no information on the reach priorities on the dashboard yet because it hasn't existed yet. So we don't actually know, the funding on that. If everyone shifts to a reach award, does that going to, actually make it more competitive? And so we don't have the answer to that yet, and we've not been told yet. So the bottom line in writing a loan repayment proposal is that you really shouldn't write to a specific loan repayment program. You should be following your research passion, right? And you should be asking for help from the NIH and from your program officials to make sure that you are applying to the right award, right? You already have your research planned for the most part, right? And so it's the project you're already doing, you're asking the NIH to support you in that. So the loan repayment categories, they change based on many factors. The priorities can change sometimes. I know that everybody on this call is doing important research that's health related, and it has a home at the NIH right now. So it's more finding the right home than necessarily changing your application to meet a loan repayment program. The keys to success in loan repayment program is a structured, mentored, and financially supported program, right? Or if you're applying as an independent researcher, a structured and financially supported program. And the other thing you can do is really to help your letter writers stay on point for whatever the main message of your proposal is. Offer talking points, outlines, draft letters for them. Make sure that your letter writers know what your grant is going to be talking about. Again, I think I have this on like 12 slides because of how important it is for success in these is know your funding priorities and contact your program official as soon as you can, right? You should be talking yourself up. If you're selecting a mentored award, select the right mentor. Make sure that your grant is clear about how great your research environment and research mentor is. Okay? Have a well-designed research proposal. Okay? Select the right letter writers who are both know you well, but will also finish the letter on time because they have to actually submit it. You don't submit it for them. And make sure that you finish your award with time to review and edit and revise and catch all those typos. Make sure your formatting works and that you're underneath the page limits. A question that I've heard from a few junior researchers is what to do with a slim publication record. If you feel like you're not, maybe you feel a little underpublished for this. That's not necessarily true. The loan repayment program is about retaining people when they're at a dangerous time point, right, for leaving academic medicine and other health services careers. So you don't have to say, I haven't published a lot, right? They can tell, they can read your CV, but you do need to show how you are planning to, commit to a research career and really build your productivity. So in your research plan, include what publications you think you might be doing. It shows that you're thinking about this, that you're aware of it and you have a plan. And make sure that your letter writers reference how they will be mentoring you on increasing your scientific productivity. Right. But please don't put in like, I know I don't have a great CV. Like that's not, they want to hear how you will have a great CV. Right. So grants are all future oriented and hopeful. So we're going to come back to the dashboard after we've had an opportunity for our panel to talk, because I think that that's more fun than listening to me talk more. And then we'll get back to the dashboard and do some workshopping after that. Cecilia, do you want to introduce our panel, or shall I?
Hi there. Sorry, I was muted. No, please introduce them.
All right. Well, we have Dr. Acevedo and Dr. Chaudhary and Dr. Bala, who are all recent or current participants in the KL2 program who've successfully received loan repayment programs. And this is a great chance for us to ask them about how they did it, right, and what were keys to success for them. I don't know, each of you want to introduce yourself and just say which institute you're from, and maybe what your main research priorities are right now. You can start, Dr. Acevedo.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm an MS neurologist here at Keck, and I did the KL2 program from 2016 to 2019, and am in the my second renewal. So I had a first LRP, then I renewed it, then I got a second renewal. So it's the third 2-year term for the LRP. And so I can answer any questions. I do imaging research in MS, looking mostly at brain atrophy. But I actually submitted my LRP to NCATS. And I spoke with the program officer, like Elizabeth said, and it seemed like the best fit. And I think I wish I could say I looked at the beautiful dashboard, but I don't think I did. I think I just somehow found out that it had a better funding success rate than NINDS. And so that's how I did it.
Again, I'm Pradeep Chaudhary. I'm in year 2 of my KL2. Yeah, that's correct. And after many tries, I got it this year. Hooray. I applied, I put NICHD and NINDS both down. It went to NICHD. I do pediatric TBI research. Again, I can answer questions as they come up, but that's, again, after several attempts, I was successful, so.
Hi, everyone. Anoop Bala. I'm a pediatric intensivist at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. And I was a former KL2 scholar. It's been a few years now with Christina. Nice to see you, Christina. I applied initially for the LRP program just like 2 or 3 years into my faculty position, and was successful. And I don't know why I was successful. I didn't talk to a program officer. I didn't prepare a lot. I just submitted. I think maybe it was less competitive then. And then actually had kind of a change in my primary area of research focus, and didn't apply again for a couple of years, but then resubmitted. I was successful again, and I'm actually in my my second renewal for the LRP, and hopefully within the next year, my loans will be paid off. So very excited about that, and can answer any questions for anybody.
Thank you so much. And Frank, I saw you just came on. If you want to say hi, main research priorities.
Sorry, I missed everything because I was running tumor board, but I'm telling you my name, obviously, and then what, my research priorities?
Yeah, main research priorities, and maybe where you applied through for your loan repayment program.
So my name's Frank Antonello. I'm a neurosurgeon. I do brain tumors, especially GBM, gliomas. I finished the KL2 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And I studied non-coding RNAs and chromatin, but when I applied twice. I got rejected before I got the KL2, and I was in contact a lot through Bill Mack with the head of the NINDS career development. And he basically said, if you have a KL2 or any kind of training grant, then you have a much better chance. And that's exactly what happened. After I had the KL2, I got in, and my application was at that time, very early on for a year. I used to study vasculature and brain tumors. And because it was easily translatable into a pediatric model, I just applied under the pediatric version of what I studied.
Got it. Excellent. I'm going to see if any of the current KL2 cohort or other people in the CTR class had questions at this point. I have some remotely submitted questions as well, so don't have to feel pressured.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess one of my questions is how much modification did you do to your KL2 application to resubmit under this program?
So,
go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, my understanding of this, and in the way I think the program officer explained it to me, and I think Elizabeth said, it's not, you're not rewriting science. The science part is already funded. And so the way they explained it to me was to just put down on paper what you're going to do for the next 2 years. And so I think I changed mine depending on where I was exactly in the KL2. I think I tailored it to, this is literally what I'll be doing for the next 2 years. But I don't know, does that sound right, Elizabeth? That's what I've
counseled people on before, and what
Okay.
I personally did myself.
Yeah.
I took my current, the chunk of my training award, and you have to make sure you change the things. It can't say, in this KL2 project, I will do this. You say, in this NIH Loan Repayment Program, find and replace. But I don't. I that's one strategy. I don't know if anybody else had a different strategy.
I mean, I changed. It's a different format, right? So, it was the same thing, just in a different format. I have to go and look at the exact thing, but that's basically what I did.
And after,
Yeah. Same here. That was part. I mean, Frank sounds similar to what happened, but I basically applied for the KL2, applied for the NIH Loan Repayment Award. I just sort of reformatted to fit, and then didn't get the KL2. And then once I got the KL2, then I submitted the same thing. I think the KL2, thank you, Cecilia, for the letter, obviously bolstered things and pushed it forward, but I didn't do much change in the major aims or anything. They were basically just reformatting and fitting everything in.
I guess the one thing I did that I don't know if anyone falls into, like my KL2 wasn't on pediatric tumors, but I didn't fit in any of the categories because I don't do clinical research, and I think they've added new categories since. But I basically was, minorly changed it for that. But I don't think I made a lot of changes.
Dr. Bala, did you have a different strategy, or was it?
Yeah, I know that's what I used. The same science that I was already doing, and just formatted it for the application.
I think it really highlights that the loan repayment program is about retaining you as a researcher, not about funding new science. There's no funds to do work. The money is entirely goes straight to your loan repayment. So the work has to have a financial backing, it has to be able to happen, for them to really consider you a strong applicant for the loan repayment program. So that funding can come from a lot of places, though. I think everyone here is applied with their KL2 project, but if you have funded research with a mentor who has a funded research aim, or if you receive funding, startup funds from your institute or your university, those are also funded research opportunities. It doesn't have to be NIH research, but they do really like NIH research. So
I think there's a restriction. The only thing was it can't be pharma. You can't be funded by pharma.
No, it has to be
which is relevant for, and even throughout your loan repayment contract, it's considered a breach of contract if you receive research money from pharma, which is relevant in my field because there's a lot of clinical trials in MS.
Mhm.
And I can't be a site PI. I can't receive percent effort for those things until my LRP is done. So just in case that's relevant for anybody.
That's an excellent point.
Do they have the same restriction for any industry funding, medical device funding, for example?
Good question, because I don't know that, because if I were to be funded by an MRI tech, Siemens or Philips, I don't know the answer to that, but the program officer should know that for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely reach out right away before you put too much of your time into it to make sure that you're not automatically excluded for right now, and then it changes your decisions about the future. So.
I think it's almost to the point. I don't know what you do, but like again, in my case, if I wanted to reach out to Siemens for support to have them fund a little pilot project, I can't under the terms of the LRP, even if it's not related to the research that's done by the LRP. So, FYI. And the other thing I learned from along the way, actually from my accountant, I think I missed this somewhere, but it's taxed as income. Loan forgiveness is taxed as income. And so I ended up having personally, I had to pay quarterlies on it, on the amount that I was going to receive as loan repayment. So I had to plan it out with my accountant. And then they do withhold federal taxes, but I actually thought they didn't withhold state taxes. Because I think they told me they can't because everybody's in different states or something. So I ended up owing California a lot, like the first year that this happened. And then I had to, like I said, my accountant and I had to figure out quarterlies and stuff in the aftermath. But I didn't realize when I entered this somehow I missed that in the paperwork or the fine print or whatever, that it was going to be taxes. And it's a lot. I mean, if you get the $50,000 a year, that's a lot of extra income. So just FYI about that too.
I missed the beginning, but my number was 75 total, but over 2 years. So maybe that's what you're saying. And then the other thing is, I remember talking to Bill Mack about this and seeing it in mine, but I might be wrong. I thought that they give you extra to pay your taxes.
I don't know about that. Not sure. Is that right?
Yeah, they give you like a 39% stipend that's supposed to go towards your taxes on top of it.
That way it's like, it is your, like mine was 75. So like I got 75 off my loans and then they gave me an extra amount to cover whatever.
It doesn't always cover all the taxes is part of the issue.
Oh, maybe that's what happened to me. I don't know.
But
Yeah, I don't think it covers all of it. So I've had to pay additional taxes on top of it as well.
But I think even if you get public service loan forgiveness, that may have changed with the new legislation, but in the past that's been taxable too.
Yeah, that is
So
currently taxable.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's important to they find the money somewhere. No. But I think that those are all really good points for planning that. If you do receive it, if you're selected for the award, you do have to like certify that you want it and send in a bunch of loan documents, like a lot of loan documents, to verify that it's all eligible loans. And so it's not like they just write you a check. Like there's going to be things that you have to do to make it happen. But I think for many of us, it's worth it. And Frank, they actually increased the max to 100,000 now. It's 50,000 a year for 2 years. So I know I was sad to see that too, but I mean, happy for you all. Sad for myself. Any other questions from the audience right now?
Yeah, I had a question kind of talking about the amount of documents they request. And obviously there's work and time that goes into putting together one of these applications. What is the utility if you're on track for the public service loan forgiveness? Like, I think I have like a little over 2 years left for that. Is there any utility to going through this process in parallel? Like, is there a tax benefit or just to make sure that if something terrible happens with the other program?
I'm interested in people's opinions.
I'm on track as well. And I'm actually going to be part of the way through this first cycle eligible because I did it straight out. So, which is great news, but it is paying for my time now. So if you're going to have any overlap or extension, if there's issues with getting it sort of forgiven, there, I think it's been a change, and I, of course, am not an expert in this, in that taxes piece to the public service loan forgiveness that used to also be taxed. But I think they may have made that change to where it's not. So I think you just have to think a little bit more on when does the timing sort of fall for you. I will say this is at the very least, even if you get a few months out of it, you're saving money. It's also a grant that I'm putting on my CV from the NIH, which I think is also a big boost. And so I'm hoping, that's also a big benefit as well, on top of the financial benefits. But
how have you, I've been confused about the interaction between public service loan forgiveness and this program, just because, and for me, at least, I couldn't figure out public service loan forgiveness 10 years ago when it was so confusing, and I kind of gave up on it, to be honest. And I'm happy they're like making it more accessible now. So I might apply also, but like if the NIH pays 50 grand, like for me, for example, just to, my loan payments were like, let's say $1,000 a month prior to me entering this program. If they pay 50 grand in a year, do they count that as 50 months worth of payments? Do you know? Because that's the thing that has been confusing to me is like Navient or whoever my lender was said, oh yeah, that'll count. But it's like, but it's not the same thing as like just a monthly payment. It's like a bunch of monthly payments. And I'm not sure how that's counted. I don't know if anybody here knows.
Wait, are you saying right now for us applying for public loan service?
Yeah. So if you were to have a balance at the end of your LRP or during your LRP, if you were to qualify for public service loan forgiveness, I'm not sure how the LRP payments would be counted towards that. You see what I mean?
No, I do. I have to look. I'm in the middle of submitting right now, but I don't know that I probably should have read through it, but the rules. I mean, I just know that they're relaxed, so I was like, I'll see if I'm eligible.
That's what my lender told me to do, and then the LRP people said go ahead because there's no contraindication.
Yeah,
like
it's the current guidance that they're giving. I think this is all really getting worked out because the public service loan forgiveness waiver, which is going to be in that first slide that should, I'm going to print that and send that out to everybody at the end of this, includes the guidance that they are not exclusive. And the way that, I don't know if you look at your loan statements when you get your reimbursement, but it like says like, I don't owe payments until like 2032 or something like that at this point.
Yeah, that's what I
counting
have.
them as on-time payments. At least that's how the loan processors have been. So I'm going to try to. I don't have that much left at this point. They'll be like, "There's $500, thank you," but I appreciate the $500. But at this point, I think the guidance is still a little fuzzy. We don't know exactly how the federal government is going to count these. They're counting years of forbearance as on-time payments. Like if people who got laid off during COVID and were in forbearance for 2 years, those are being counted as on-time payments for 2 years. So there's also some issues with who owns your loan, like whether it's a private lender or the direct loan. So I think there's a lot of confusion in there, but there's an opportunity for a lot of us to really reduce our debt and stay working at the institutions that we want to stay working at, which is tough in LA. So.
Yeah. And if it gets forgiven, let's say that our balances got forgiven in the middle of our LRP award, would the NIH would just say, great, awesome, we can save money there or what? I mean, the NIH probably wouldn't be mad about that, I would think, right?
Yeah, they haven't given us that guidance at this point, whether they will just give you back the money, right? Like personally, you're like, well, I paid it, do I get it back now? Or is it just that the NIH won't pay the rest of your award? So that guidance has not been clarified yet. I would like to know as well. But unfortunately, too much money floating to know the answers to some of those things. But everyone should probably apply for the waiver just in case.
I think I or am not properly understanding this NIH program then. So does it covers your current monthly payments? It's not like they just take that chunk off of how much you owe. Like, how does it, I'm just confused.
They pay for you. They send a check in your name to your loan processor.
But from what I can tell, it doesn't actually have anything to do with your monthly. They just say, like, let's say you get, depending on your amount of debt, they award you the 50 grand per year for 2 years. They will send a quarterly check for $12,500 for 2 years.
So the whole thing is that you're not currently paying while you're doing this.
Yes, exactly. So regardless of what your monthly payment is, they will overpay for you for the next 2 years. And that's why all of our due dates for our next monthly payment are like in 2030 something, because we're paid ahead by like years. You know what I mean?
This makes more sense now. Thank you. I think I just totally misunderstood. I thought to be honest, when I entered the program, I thought, okay, they'll just take my monthly payment and pay it for me. But they actually pay way more than what that would be. You know what I mean? So that's why it's good. Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like we are creating more questions and solving this, but I think it's good. I mean, it's good to know these things and about whether it's worth it, but you don't have to submit all those documents and things until you're awarded. So they don't expect you to collect all of your loan documents.
I actually don't think it's that onerous of documentation. Like I put together most of my applications within like a week or two, which it's a lot of money for a week or two of work.
I have a question for the group. Did any of you have any support from your department or any part of the school to help you with this? I'm just wondering if we should create one, a support, should we create something to where people can come at USC CHLA and any questions and any processes that need to be clarified or helped, we should create something for them.
I mean, my department didn't, but like, some of my mentors had done it themselves, and I just sought out people that had done it the way you guys are all doing it. So, I mean, there's that, but no, there's nothing formal in like the department level.
There's nothing at Keck on the school level either. I reached out to a few people in preparation for this, and they were all like, no, that's something people do on their own. I don't know if CHLA has a different.
Yeah, there's nothing formal at CHLA either.
I mean, Cecilia, if you wanted like to create like people that would be willing to answer questions, I mean, that's one way, I guess, because that's basically what I did. I was like, oh, who in our department's got an LRP? I'm gonna go bother them.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, people like that don't have like access to people who would actually be able to answer the questions like you do, Frank, like people who are in other departments who don't have someone that, where can they go? Should we create something that, we advertise across broadly and for everyone to have that same support that you did?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. I didn't have anybody in my department who had an LRP when I applied. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that would be really useful for people.
I can say, I registered to be an NIH ambassador for, I'm not even sure why I did at the time, but I was kind of curious, like, oh, am I going to get something from it? And I don't. I get emails once every 3 months with some information, and then they have a couple slides that I decided I didn't like, and I made my own anyway. Sorry if this is being recorded, but I'm listed as someone who's received one at USC, and my email address is there. So anybody who's like interested in reaching out to somebody who's applied could reach me. I've actually had people from other universities email me with like questions about their loan repayment program, and no one from USC has ever contacted me. So
yeah, I have a feeling people are not aware of this. I just have this feeling that a lot of people are not aware of this. You know what? There's something in the chat that says maybe a list of name of people who have LRPs and reaching out to them. So actually, the people who do have these are on NIH Reporter. So you can go to NIH Reporter, and everyone at USC and CHLA will be listed there. So maybe that's a good thing to do. Also, just go there and have a list, see a list.
Yeah, or maybe that's kind of what I was like. If the CTSI had a list available, and even like, I mean, I get the Norris blasts, or I forget what blasts, of like all the available grants every week. And if around the time of the LRP or a couple months ahead of time, not only do they say coming up, but for, access to prior applicants, please contact CTSI.
Is the LRP on those blasts? I was just thinking about those blasts.
I don't think so.
Because it would make sense to put that on the deans.
Yeah.
I feel like there's probably 5 blasts, the deans and the CTSIs and all the.
Yeah. On all the lists that we
get.
Get.
Because it sounds like I think I became aware of this from a friend in the field. But if it's not broad, if this program is under, if people are not as aware, then we should be blasting. I think it's great that you're having a session on this, because I don't recall that a few years ago when it was us. So I think that's great.
We don't have a session, we have an ambassador.
I know, that's awesome. No, because I think like everybody else here, I submitted mine after the first year of my KL2, and that's the time, like somebody said, that's the time when people are most likely to be successful. So it makes sense to have a CDSS session on this for sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll make a CTO required. But so any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Frank, you had unmuted.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Any other questions from the group, or I have some of the earlier submitted questions, some of which I think we've answered at this point.
Can I ask a question to the group, to the experts? And maybe you already covered it, but your top tip for this, the thing that everyone has to know, if we haven't already said it.
I think I wrote about in both my initial application and my subsequent renewals, like how it was going to be beneficial for me, like how that support was going to make me stay in research. I don't know if that made a difference or not, but I tried to highlight that a little bit as opposed to most grants where you wouldn't write anything about that.
Thanks, Anu.
I mean, it's been said, it's just having a grant is important. The thing that sucks about this is you don't get feedback. Like I didn't get feedback from my rejection. So like I can tell you everything that's wrong with me about my KOA because I like memorized it all, but eventually got it. But like they don't, like I don't know what I did right.
What did you change?
I got a KL2.
So I think funded research is a funded research track is just really, it's not that you can't get it with, I know people that have received them without being on a K award or things like that, but they were highly aligned to institute priorities and in like structured fellowship programs that had a research core to it. You know, so it's, they want to know that the research is going to happen whether or not you get the loan repayment program.
I mean, I think having a help from someone, like we were talking about too. I mean, I look back at my grants when I first started as faculty, and like I've improved. So I mean, that probably helped too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've written many letters of support for this grant or this funding mechanism. So I'm just wondering, how did you choose the people to write letters of support, other than me? If you're in the KL, you've been in the KL.
Mine were from my mentors, and then obviously you wrote this year. I would say my tip is the same as Frank's, which is I tried. I got on the third try, but it wasn't successful. And even though the second one was submitted on the successful K, they didn't know that for my submission because I didn't get it during the next. So it wasn't until I told them I had a K that I got it. So outside of that, the application was similar to my K. I knew I was on the right track. I just sort of kept going until
So are you saying that
perseverance, I guess.
Are you saying that until they got my letter of support for you?
That's right. That was the game changer. It is the only thing that changed. The application remained very similar. So it's true.
I just dropped the slides in there if anybody wanted those links to kind of poke around a little bit. I think some of the pre-submitted questions we had too, and then we have about 10 more minutes of some of our panel's time. So we'll make sure we get some of the remote questions as well. I think you all answered this. When in your training grant did you first apply? Well, some of you said before your training grant you applied. Okay. So that was a key success for you.
Yeah, I mean, I received it for years, I think, before I had any kind of funding. But I spoke about in the grant my plans for funding. But I think that was a long time ago. Things are probably different.
And then which LRPs did you all apply through? It sounded like clinical research for almost all of you.
I mean, I did basic science, so I did do it through pediatric because it's just a variant of what I did.
Yeah, I did pediatrics as well.
Yeah, same.
I'm going to add myself to this. I applied a long time ago. It was when I did my KL2, so it was like 2013. And I applied through minority health disparities, which back then, if you look, that's like right when they were at their peak of funding. So, I targeted that a little bit. But, my loan repayment program was for diabetes research. I could have applied through NIH as well. But I thought I had a better shot and it worked out, thank goodness. So. And then how many cycles? You reapplied a couple times, some of you first try.
I got mine second try.
Yeah, mine was second. I applied KL2 and LRP at the same time, then got the KL2, then applied once again for the.
Yeah, mine was third time, but similar. process.
I think, sorry.
Yeah, mine was first time.
Like winner. No. But I think that really speaks to the point. It's not necessarily, sometimes it is funding priorities that year, or sometimes it's that you gain grant skills, grant writing skills, and sometimes it's having that background of research funding. But the no for this one, I agree with Frank. I was like, but you don't know anything. You don't know what to change in your reapplication, because it's not a grant where you get information back if they don't give it to you. Is there anything you wish you had done first? Now that you're looking back at it.
I mean, I wish I would have applied sooner, to be honest. I could have probably done it under a transitional grant I had before my KL2. But I don't think I was as aware, and I don't know. I'm not sure why I didn't, but it all worked out.
Mhm.
And I agree with the Noop. It's not super onerous, and even if it seems onerous, if they're going to hand you 100,000 over 2 years, then it's not that onerous.
I don't think this applies to because you guys are on the KL2, but like just getting better mentors for grants. I mean, now that I'm applying for bigger stuff and have mentors that invest a lot scientifically, I realized that early on I wasn't getting a lot of investment scientifically. I might, like Mac was amazing, Cecilia, I'm not swaying my hand, just people that are going to go through your science and make the aims actually good. Because if you're not reprocessing a grant, which we talked about, I mean, you really do need someone to make sure it looks good.
So good mentorship,
Yeah.
good scientific mentorship. I feel like we've talked about a lot of challenges. Apparently one of them is accounting. That's a big issue. And renewal awards, there were a couple of you that have applied for renewal awards. How was that process?
Fine. I think the second one I have now, I called the program officer because it was pretty imaging heavy. And I said, I don't know if this is NCATS anymore. I've been, thanks for the, been 4 years with NCATS, but I wonder if this would be more appropriate for NINDS. And he looked into it and talked to people, and they decided to have me apply under NCATS. So I don't know. I mean, I think they make it seamless. The help, I've had many a help, LRP help at whatever nih.gov. Their email address is super helpful when you lock your password out and you can't do your things that you have to do online. I mean, I really do think they make this program like as easy as they can for us. You just have to submit your proof of that the payment actually made it to your lender every quarter, and that's pretty much it. So the renewal was also very easy.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's pretty straightforward to renew. I mean, just to be clear though, it's kind of the same application. You do the same thing again, but you just update what you've done in the meantime.
Yeah, and you don't have to send in all your loan stuff for renewals because they already have it from your first grant. So it's actually pretty easy.
Okay, cool. Any last words of wisdom before we release you back to your research that is helping fund your LRP?
If you get rejected, keep trying, because I have a lot of rejections.
Always a good attitude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say go for it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Reformat your current grants and go for it.
So Elizabeth, as an ambassador, what are your like what do you offer to people as an ambassador?
Well, I think it's probably a little bit of this, right? That we've brought everyone together here to kind of give group feedback at the same time and some guidance, but it's being someone who said, yes, I've done this program, it isn't as horrible as it seemed like it's going to be when you first look at the website. And I think really emphasizing the point of it is to keep good scientists in health research, right? And that, the NIH recognizes that there's kind of this issue right now of skyrocketing tuition and loans. And then, the differential between academic and industry salaries or academic and community practice salaries. And so it's a way to keep us there, keep us feeling like we are doing something. I think I said before, this is my husband's favorite grant. He was like, of many of the other grants that I've stayed up until 2 a.m. writing, that maybe he's been less.
He actually helped.
This one he loves. So, it's one of those things where you, actually see the benefit in your personal life, not just your professional life, which I think is helpful for those of us that were kind of having that issue of figuring out financial balancing. So that's good. And I would say, you don't have to be faculty yet. So I know we have a couple of fellows right now that are supported on T awards. So you're still eligible through that, I believe. Although it does pause your service repayment to your T or F32. If you're receiving the loan repayment, you can't use your loan repayment program time as service back towards your T or F32. Which is important to know if you're on that type of program. Most of you are doing this because you want to stay in academics and you will be giving back time anyway. It's not really an issue, but it's just important to know that.
I added a little blurb from the website about what happens if you get public service loan forgiveness. I just Googled it and found that there. So it sounds like they just cancel or they stop sending you money.
Yeah.
I first read this and I was like, oh, they give you the money, but that's not what happens.
Yeah, that's up from like last night then, because this yesterday when I buffed my slides, I checked on this again and there wasn't guidance on it yet. So I would say this is probably so that's good to know, right? I think Tiffany, you have that specific question. So yeah, but I think there's also value in just having an NIH grant that is specific to you also. I want to say thank you to our panel for taking.
Yeah, I'll just chime in quickly. I feel like that was commented on in my K application, actually, that I was an LRP awardee. So yeah, I think that there is a difference from that standpoint with this award.
I think that was in my K comments also, was that, it shows a commitment to a funded research career, that you're willing to put in the time to submit this award. And that's part of, especially for training awards, what I think reviewers are looking for is, is this like a lark? Or are you just submitting this because your chair said you have to submit a K award? Or are you actually committed to a funded career? And that's one of the ways you show that. So. All right. Well, thank you to our panel. I know that.
Thank you, everyone.
Busy. We appreciate your
all
time.
together.
And we're going to look at the dashboard together and do a quick workshop of like how to convert your current award to an LRP award. But I know for our panel, you're like, I'm not applying again. I'm good. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. That was fun.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So we're going to workshop this shortly. And I think this is a little tiny here, but I put the slides in the chat if anybody wants to download them and blow them up for themselves a little bit. But these are the documents or forms that you need for a loan repayment program, and then how they match to a training award proposal, such as a KL2 award or an F32 or K08 or K23. So one is a biosketch. You all should have a biosketch right now of some form. So that is the same. Like there's very little change to that, except you should update that if you've received a training award or that you're in a training program. If you're applying for a mentored research scientist award, you need your mentor's biosketch. So that should have been part of a KL2 or a training award. So that's nothing different except to edit it and say what this new grant is for. You need a personal statement. It's a 1-page limit, which is what most of us wrote, a personal statement for a career training award. So there is literally no difference except find and replace the program you're applying for. Right. And make sure that you reference the current program you're in. A career development plan is not necessarily required for a mentored award because there's a separate document for a mentored award. But if you are a junior researcher applying as an independent researcher, you do need to have a career development plan of what the skills you're working on attaining are, where you see your career going, what your plans are to develop those skills. The limit on that is 2 pages. Okay. So, that's something to think about. So for an independent award, this is a little bit weird wording because we're used to seeing career development plans as part of mentored awards, but it's actually expected in the independent award for this award. Your research activities are going to be the same research activities you've written for a prior grant. Just make sure that you've put it for the timeline of the 2-year award period. So if there's preliminary work you're currently doing that wouldn't be part of this funding cycle, which would start next July, then you just need to edit to where you would actually be for this award. The research environment. This is one area I had to shorten a lot. Because for my my KL2 and my K23, my research environment was like 4 pages long. Like I put everything in there, and you really have to shorten it for the loan repayment program.
And for the reviewers.
Yeah, no, they like to see lots of stuff. But it's important because there isn't the same limitation. The limitation is different than it is for the NIH larger awards. So you have to make sure that you're really emphasizing the research environment that's supporting you in there.
This might be a dumb question, but what exactly is the research environment?
Oh, I want to see if there's a response from the group. I have an opinion, but. When anybody's written a research environment, what have they done? How have they picked that?
Well, I can speak a little bit to this. I think it really encompasses all of the resources that are available to you. I mean, excluding your mentor specifically, but anything from like technical core facilities, computing facilities, research support services at an administrative level, the buildings themselves, the number of like ORs, really any of that, any resources that are available in your institute or a hospital. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, and I think we think a lot about the physical resources. Like are there sufficient patients? Like what's the patient volume through your particular study population? And then things like the SCCTSI, right? Like there's if you're applying for any awards, like reach out to us for the boilerplate text of what the SCCTSI offers. Or like career scientists, that's not something you write from scratch. That exists already at this university, and you should edit to match your needs. But part of having a strong research environment boilerplate text shows the institute supports junior researchers, right? So that actually is something when I'm reviewing training awards for other places that I look at. I'm like, oh, did they make this person write something from scratch, or is there existing institutional text that shows they've thought through these things ahead of time? Because it's really, does the institute support junior researchers, or is it, you got to fight for every last nickel that goes towards your work? So there is also this training mentoring plan. So this is what I think most of us think is a career development plan when we're writing a training award, because this is supposed to be from the applicant written with your mentor. But it should also include your mentor's past trainees. Right, so your training mentoring plan includes who your mentor is and who your mentor's past trainees are and how they've been successful, which is not always explicitly laid out in a training award and really should be. Then there's a certification for online application. That's a pretty easy checkbox process to go through. And it also has to be cleared by that business official, Janet Stockert. And your reference letter writers have to submit letters as well. So there's a little bit of organization of other people's schedules that you're not actually doing anything for unless you're helping them with an outline of a letter or a draft of a letter. But you need to get it to them early so that it gets submitted on time. So those are the big changes. So as you can see, it's a lot of editing and then a little bit of organizing letters and bio sketches from collaborators. But it's not a huge, it shouldn't be a huge new write if you're already on a funded process. Questions on that? That's in our slides to look through on that. But I did want to share the dashboard briefly. I didn't want to take our panel's time at that point because I know many of them had things they had to get back to. But this is our dashboard, right? So if you look through the dashboard, anybody think about what years right now they have 2012 through 2021 up. And so they don't have the 21-22 year up yet, and they don't have the new REACH awards yet. So you're looking at a little bit of historical data. But you can look at all kinds of different things. You can look at, well, what happened with the health disparities research. And it shows you, by year, all awards, what people are getting, what are the new awards, right? This gives you the size of award is what the cluster is. And you can look at different years. And if you want to kind of scoot around, you're like, well, I'm actually interested in, the clinical research programs. How did they do? And this is for all the years. So I want to know, well, actually just from, 2020 to 21, there were 2,600 applicants, right? Pretty good success rate at 60%, right? And the mean award was $68,000. And so there's a lot of money going towards this, and you can look at all kinds of different awards that are submitted. The other thing is, if you're interested, I think this is not really something you're going to change at this point about what your demographics are, but if you're interested in the breakdown, different demographics under different types of loan repayment programs, you can see a lot of different information about what's going on with that. And so it's just kind of an interesting place to look around when you're first making a decision about which loan repayment program to apply for, and trying to figure out which program officers you want to reach out to, because you should probably reach out to a few of them when you're first starting and find out who you're best aligned with, not just one at a time. But you can see kind of the different application rates, OAuth success rates, looking at what's going on. So that's the health disparities research. You can look at the clinical research. You can see that, there's different trends in all of these different awards. So I highly recommend going to the dashboard just to spend a little time looking around and seeing what the different loan repayment programs are and looking at some of those success levels. Although remember, take those with a grain of salt because they're not updated for the newest, REACH LRP. And you don't have a ton of information about like the institute people are coming from or what other things might have made them successful. They don't include do they already have a training award as a variable, which I think would be a fascinating variable to see on the success rates. All right, so that is NIH loan repayment programs. I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions. Karen has a survey that she'd like everyone to take to give us feedback about how to think about, the CDSSs in general, the career development seminar series in general, but then also if this is something that we hold again next year outside of the career development seminar series, and what are ways to improve this kind of seminar and reach out to more people. Thank you.